Hey team, you're about to experience my interview with Ivo OPPONG-ADDAI from Next Commerce. He is the founder and managing director of Next, and Next Commerce is a B2B focused marketplace and dealer seller platform for B2B merchants. It allows these B2B merchants to create a dealer portal from within their own website so that the dealer's stock and inventory can be sold directly through the brand's e-commerce website experience, captured and surrounded by that brand experience. And what it does is it helps to effectively drive traffic and business for dealers of that brand directly from the brand website. It's a very unique experience. It's a very unique technology that works particularly well for manufacturer and dealer networks. Enjoy. Welcome to B2B Commerce Corner. Commerce Corner is a sub-series of the E-Commerce Edge podcast discussing all things B2B commerce through the lens of agencies, consultants, merchants, and more. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I have an amazing guest lined up for you today, and I would love to welcome Let's do that again. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. It is my pleasure to bring Ivo OPPONG-ADDAI to the podcast today. Welcome, Ivo.
Look, Jason, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Really excited to have this session with you.
As am I. I always love talking to people specifically around the software that they're building to service the commerce space, and especially people that are building technology to service the B2B e-commerce space or the B2B commerce space. And that's what you're doing with Next Commerce. And look, we'll get into that. We'll talk about it. But before we get into that, why don't you give us the elevator pitch or the short story about how you even came to be in this space? As I look across your past, you've got a digital marketing experience, you've got e-commerce experience, you've got some entrepreneurial experience, plus you have an MBA. So it feels like you had all of the ingredients necessary for this recipe that eventually became Next Commerce.
Yes, exactly. You said it. I started off in digital marketing after my degree in London, and I was really excited. I cut my teeth, so to say, in the digital marketing space, working for an agency that had Apple as a client. It was fantastic. Later on, I moved back to Germany, where I was born, and also there did a little bit of digital marketing. After my MBA, however, I deep dived into e-commerce, and I loved every single minute of it, and it was exciting. I built up e-commerce, the B2C e-commerce, basically for Bosch. Today you would say D2C. And after a few years, Bosch asked me if I wanted to set up the digital organization in Africa. So I moved to Morocco, and whilst on my international assignment, I thought, what do I like to do? Where am I good at? Where is my passion? And I was on a long walk with my wife at the beach, and we talked for hours. And at the end of this conversation, I was like, yes, that's it, e-commerce. And then everything followed after that, right? Everything fell into place, and it was fantastic. This is basically how Next Commerce came about.
And why also, where did the genesis for a focus on manufacturers, distributors, wholesalers, how did that come about? Why the focus on B2B versus, say, D2C or B2C, aggregated retail? Why this focus on B2B? Was there a particular challenge that you saw, particularly over at Bosch, that you said, hey, I actually have a unique vantage point to understanding how these B2B brands struggle digitally, and so therefore I feel like I'm in pole position to be able to help solve for these problems uniquely?
Yes. How did it come about? Around 2015, Bosch Power Tools created the so-called digital backbone, right? They selected 100 bright minds, and luckily I was one of them, to really establish the digital unit, right? That was the founding, let's say, organization of going digital, really, full force. And later on, I got the responsibility to lead the eShop project as a program manager. And this is, Jason, where I really learned about the conflict between a brand that wants to go D2C to really leverage their brand name and their digital touch points towards their users, as we like to call them at Bosch. And at the same time, due to their, let's say, history, they set up their relationships with their dealers and sales network, they were in a conflict situation, right? How can we sell in an attractive way to our users and have them buy from us without jeopardizing our relationships to our dealers and them saying, you know what, I'm not gonna order from you anymore, and I will favor maybe a different brand. And we used technology like Commerce Connector. Basically, I'm not quite sure if you know them. They were bought by PriceSpider in the meantime, I think a couple of years ago. Basically, where we connected our products from our digital touch points to our dealers. However, looking from a user journey point of view, you come to the manufacturer's website, you see a product that you like, and they say, look, no, if you want to buy from us, please go to our dealer, right? Different experience altogether for the customer. Sometimes the products are out of stock, right? In seldom cases, but it can happen, right? Or the prices don't really reflect what it showed on the Bosch website. So it was, from my point of view, not a very good digital experience for our users, right? And number one. Number two, a different challenge was, even if the user or the customer bought at one of our dealers' online shops, we wouldn't know, right? Why? Because the dealers wouldn't allow us to add a tracking pixel on their thank you page to understand if the user journey started on our website, so to say, and we customer to buy the product from our dealer. So this is the kind of challenge I felt needs to be tackled in a better way, how I see it. That's how I came about Next Commerce.
And I think what's really nice about how you laid that out is you have started to uncover and unpick some of the extreme complexity in B2B e-commerce for manufacturers, wholesalers, and distributors. And that is the fact that almost every single time someone tries to establish either a direct-to-consumer or even a B2B e-commerce experience, they start creating channel conflict almost from day one. Because the reality is that most manufacturers, wholesalers, and distributors, they're selling to either resellers or people that are going to be selling directly to trade, directly to industry, their servicing industry,
right,
etc. And so anytime a brand tries to do anything that is of direct to consumer in any way and short circuits the dealer network, it really starts to create some extreme channel conflict to the point where I've actually seen exactly what you're talking about firsthand in Australia. Years and years ago, I was working with a major international watch manufacturer, one of the most well-known name brands in the world. I won't mention them here, but what we were trying to do, or what they were trying to do, they sold through a network of dealers and retailers throughout the whole of Australia, and that was like 95, 98% of their business. They did have the odd warehouse sale. They did have the odd end of the year open. They had physical warehouses throughout the country, and occasionally they would do liquidation sales or something like that, but they did nothing digitally. And, the only thing they ever did digitally was end of lines, end of seasons, etc. through eBay. They didn't have their own, transactional e-commerce experience at all. And then they called us in to try to help them establish a D2C e-commerce experience, but they sprung it on their dealer network. And they told their dealer network about it after they had already launched, because they knew that there would be some retribution. And they thought the best thing for us to do is to keep this kind of under wraps. I recommended against that. I recommended early and often dialogue with their dealers long before they did anything digitally. They chose to go a different direction, and I had to respect that. But ultimately what they ended up doing is they turned off the transactional functions of their e-commerce site. And this was years ago, and we built their site on Magento. But this channel conflict thing, those dealers threatened to pull something like, I think it worked out to be $50 or $60 million a year worth of revenue for the business. They threatened to pull that overnight because they said, if you're going to compete with us in the market, then we won't buy from you anymore. So it's your choice. If you continue to be transactional, that's fine. We're no longer going to be a reseller of your product. so therefore get stuffed, was basically the mentality. They're like, hey, we've got they're saying, hey, we've got 10 other brands we carry. They don't compete with us, so we'll continue to carry those. We won't carry you. And so I think, and they were not in the position of, say, a Nike, where Nike so totally dominates the market that if a reseller says, hey, we don't want to buy off you, Nike, because you're selling direct to consumer, well, Nike says, bye-bye, that's fine. We're growing our D2C sales faster than the sales growth through our resellers, so therefore we don't need you as much as you need us. This brand, this watch brand, was not in that position, and I would venture to say that 95% of B2B brands out there are not in the same position as Nike. So they cannot just ignore their dealer network. They cannot ignore their resellers.
Definitely not.
And it sounds like that's exactly the position you got to.
You got it right there. It really sounds familiar, everything that you said. And that channel conflict basically also led to a similar reaction, right? After a few years being in multiple countries, having multiple, let's say, Bosch brands selling directly to the user within the unit that I was working for, right? The decision eventually was made to cut back on that. Because, as you said, right, the response by the dealers was so heavy that management basically said, no, look, we don't want to jeopardize our decades-long relationship with our dealers. So then, what do you do as a brand, Jason, right? You do not have so much choice. Either you say, no, I'm happy to take the challenge on, or you need to maybe only sell on an RRP level, which 2 clicks away, your customers will find the same product cheaper on a different website. And again, you will not know through which media your customer, or through which channel your customer converted, right? You will just not know it. So how to go about go-to-market activities and be able to sell your products through your dealer network or directly, right? And that's the challenge that I took on with Ecommerce, where I said, okay, there must be a better way about it without losing, let's say, the data, the analytics about where the customer eventually ended up buying my products.
And did you also see a scenario where, and this is often what I have seen brands do as a half measure or a half solution, is they'll say, okay, we're going to put all of our dealers into regional catchments or regional areas, and we're going to say, okay, we're going to continue to sell directly through our own website as well as through wholesale channels and dealer channels. But what we're going to do is anything we sell directly to the customer, the end user in your case, we're going to allocate that sale from a commission or from a margin perspective. We're going to allocate that to the dealer or the wholesaler or the retailer that's in the catchment that we're shipping the goods to. Now that gets suddenly pretty complex pretty fast when, in the case of Bosch, for example, you might have 2 or 3 dealers within the same very close geographic area, right? Because if we're thinking about like a Home Depot, or we're thinking about a Lowe's, or we're thinking about even some of the smaller engineering supply places and places like that, they're always within a very close proximity to each other. And so it suddenly becomes very difficult, even if you want to do the right thing by your dealers, if you're not actually encouraging the execution of the transaction through that dealer, you're still going to get channel conflict. It's almost impossible to avoid.
Yes. So, no, we didn't evaluate such scenarios because, as you said, excuse me there. So, as you said, it can become complicated very quickly. So the question was, how can we learn about our customers? We want to know who is that person who wants to buy our tool. Through which media do we attract them, right? General brand awareness activities, yeah? Which are the channels that they engage with our media? Let's say social media, right? And which are the channels where they consider buying our brand? Or we have customers coming through the customer service channel because they have a broken tool, right? This is something where we saw with our activities, because we needed to take any opportunity we had. So we took that route basically, saying, okay, let us try to convert customers coming through our customer service hotline and ask them to convert via our website. And that worked pretty well, Jason, but the volume wasn't there, right? Bosch is renowned for quality, for durability, right? For, of course, excellent customer service. So that was a plus in that case. But the volume was just not there. It was not enough to basically say, okay, this to render a direct to user channel with transactional functionality ROI positive. In multiple markets, right, we are talking about, you need the entire structure. You need development teams, as you need the marketing teams, the sales teams, you need the digital teams like maybe eShop manager or whatever, right? Plus all the promotions that you need to run quickly. There will be a few numbers of headcounts coming together that will then not render the activity ROI positive. And of course, at the end of the day, we need to also leverage those, let's say, capabilities within an organization where we feel it has a positive business contribution. So what do you do then? You end up saying, maybe that game is not for us. Of course, knowing Bosch, these activities were stopped for a couple of years and then restarted with, let's say, more ambitions, maybe different setup, better technology and so forth. But yeah, the ultimate challenge is still there. Are you going into the channel conflict with your dealers? Yes or no? And what are your arguments for it and your arguments against it? Or you find a smarter way of leveraging your dealer network in order to drive sales, but also not lose out on the data that you generate.
And that's how Next Commerce really came to be, is to find that third way, as opposed to pure dealer sales, as opposed to pure D2C or some combination of the two. It's no, actually we can drive sales that in a way to the consumer seem D2C in the way that they engage with the brand, but ultimately they're actually getting serviced by the dealers themselves. And so the dealers don't miss out on the revenue, they don't miss out on the margin, they don't miss out on the direct customer contact and actually being able to support the customer in a localized way. But by the same token, the brand themselves, they get a lot more data. They actually form a direct relationship with the consumer. The feedback loop is much smaller and shorter. It can help to inform their digital marketing channels, even places where might be a shopping comparison website, etc. There's a lot of digital media that these large global brands run. And so being able to understand distribution in a globalized way becomes super important, as you say, for understanding ROI on ad spend, especially when you're running a lot of traditional advertising combined with a lot of digital advertising, which Bosch does both. And they also service verticalized industries very heavily, like automotive. And so therefore, how do we make sure that what we're marketing and the categories of products that we're marketing, how do we make sure that we're actually doing the right things in the right markets at the right time, targeting the right buyers, right?
I really love the way you summarized it. Yes, that's exactly how Next Commerce came about. I actually coined the term brand commerce, right? It's all about the brand. The brand stands in the center of everything at Next Commerce, where basically we started off with a buy now page. That is a white label solution that will basically be in the corporate design of the brand, displaying the products that are basically that can be purchased, right? So you can create different buy now pages and target your customers on any channel, even offline channels with the QR code that we provide with that, right? And then the customer can basically jump on that buy now page, see the product, he likes it, clicks to see which are the available dealers that have that product on stock at that very much on that very on time on that to see, okay,
In the moment.
In that moment, thank you very much. And also to what price or what are the conditions, right? And we don't only show, of course, the price, but dealers can also more or less compete on services. How fast can I deliver the product to you, or what are my surcharges, right? We will make all of that transparent. The customer ultimately decides from which dealer he wants to purchase that very tool or that very product, right? And then enters his payment details, his address, and off it goes, right? The order goes straight to the dealer, and the brand, because now here comes at least in Germany where we are based, here comes the legal detail, right? We need to make sure compliance. We need to make sure that the brand itself cannot statistically basically analyze the sales prices, right? And we have catered for that. We have catered for that in our technology, on our platform. The brand will ultimately see who bought my product, when, through which channel, from which dealer, but not the price, not the selling price. And the dealer, however, when the dealer logs in on our platform, he will see everything about the customer. Everything about the customer. And this is how we then leverage this gap between a brand who wants to market their product, so actively push their sales, however, not to convert the customer directly, and converting is maybe in that sense not a beautiful word, but in essence not to sell directly to the customer, but to leverage their existing sales and dealer network to allow them to do what they do best, right? This end customer relationship, basically selling to the customer, providing the product in the fastest way, and this is actually what we offer. And it's been brilliant so far.
So effectively what your platform is, as far as I understand it, and it looks like it's got a lot of features and functions, and to be fair, I've never used your platform before, so I'm a bit of a noob to your platform. I've used a lot of e-commerce platforms over the years, and it's got some things in common with some of them. And it feels very much like you are a multi-vendor marketplace, but a single brand multi-vendor marketplace for the manufacturer and their dealers. So effectively, all of the sellers on that marketplace become all of the dealers for that given brand. And effectively, the dealers then become the merchant of record for those individual sales, but the brand themselves are creating the digital routes to market. They can do the digital advertising. They can drive the traffic. They can run the Facebook ads. They can run the Google ads. They can be all across social media, both organically and from a performance perspective, and ultimately drive all that traffic back to the branded website so that from an attribution and customer sourcing perspective, they have all that data. But ultimately, who executes the transaction is the dealer that's providing the best combination of price, service, availability, all these other factors, just as you would have on Amazon or eBay or anything else. You have all these dealers effectively competing against each other, not just on price, but a whole bunch of other service factors that would cause customers to ultimately select them as the merchant of record, the person they execute the transaction through. Now, what happens if in your platform, what happens if I want to buy 5 items at once? Is it like Amazon in that it's multi-vendor, even for that individual transaction? Sure, the individual transaction comes through the brand website, but ultimately, if one dealer has one of those products, another dealer has 3 of those products, and another dealer has 1 more of those products, so we've got 3 dealers for a 5-item order, then do you effectively route those individual items to the correct dealer in the back end? Is that how it works, much like a marketplace would?
Yes, definitely. So number one, you got it spot on. It's a single brand but multi-vendor platform. That's it. And so there are multiple features that we now talked about to a little bit dissect it. So firstly, yes, the brand can create offers, basically online offers. I want to promote maybe just this single brand and this single product, number one. At the same time, on that page, on that buy now page, as we call it, we have a brand shop connected to it, where the customer can browse through the portfolio, the catalog of products of that brand, no other brand, right? So he can add the products to the buy now page, and then, yes, you got it right, either we show the dealers that have all those products available, or something that we will talk later about, we have also actually a second product that we are launching now beginning of next year, where this multi-vendor checkout is possible. So we are working on it right now, but this is, let's say, a second product that we have now in our pipeline, and that will then, as you mentioned, allow customers to select any product they want And that can be also supplied by different sellers, but all connected to that single brand. And this was maybe the biggest, let's say, difference, or this is the single biggest difference of our e-commerce platform and any other platform out there, right? Because on our platform, the brands don't compete against each other like on marketplaces as we know it, nor do sellers compete against so we take the competition one level down, not that brands compete against each other, but the sellers, right? So that's why
The dealers.
The sellers, the dealers, exactly. So that's why I coined it. It's all about brand commerce, right? You want to leverage your brand. You have your brand that you have invested so much, right? This is actually what is the identity of the entire organization, right? That everything that stands with it, the quality, maybe the brand itself, right? Or maybe the pricing, maybe it's all about pricing. So all this is preserved in the e-commerce space. What is also possible, because you touch upon that, is that the brand leverages our tool for their dealers. So let me make an example. We have customers or clients, let's say, that are pure manufacturers. And however, they are so-called hidden champions, right? They sell their products worldwide. Now, those dealers or those sellers that they work with generally don't have an online shop. They don't even sell online. So what do? Not much they can do, right? Now, with our platform, what we allow them to do is to also log in themselves and to create buy now offers so that the dealer himself now can sell the products of that brand in his market, in his local market. Now, guess what? The dealer maybe is in where you are, Mexico, right? Doesn't speak a word of Spanish. I'm sorry. The brand itself doesn't speak a word of Spanish. Maybe they liaise in English with each other. What do? Maybe their product catalog is not in, maybe it's only in one language or only two languages. So our platform has the capability to translate the content in different languages, 24 different languages, plus we offer out of the box different currencies. So this becomes then a very powerful tool for dealers also to sell online. And this is where we see basically the biggest potential to give dealers tools to sell online without building an online shop or a website or any digital touch points as such.
And does your platform work in a multi way, meaning that if the dealer wants the brand to be the merchant of record and then effectively give them an account credit for everything that they sell through the platform, right? Is that how it primarily works, or does it effectively redirect the customer to execute the transaction on the dealer brand's website? But as you say, many of them don't necessarily have an e-commerce website. Maybe they've got an ERP, maybe they have a WMS or an OMS or something like that, but they don't necessarily have a customer-facing. They might even have a punch-out system or EDI or something like that, but they don't necessarily have a customer-facing e-commerce website either for their B2B customers or the end buyer. Either way, they usually often will not have an e-commerce experience. So for the purposes of the transactions that go through your platform, is the brand the merchant of record, or is the dealer the merchant of record? Because obviously it's quite a different scenario. Even if the dealer fulfills the order, the brand then in that scenario would actually take the payment. And that actually makes multi-dealer carts, or what I call composite carts, it makes them much easier to execute on, because effectively what happens then is the brand takes the payment, one whole payment, distributes the funds, whether it be as a store credit or as an account credit, or whether they pay them out directly and settle once a month, or whether they give them a credit for the products and just ship a replacement for that product to them to hold in stock. There's many different permutations of how that settlement can happen between the brand and the dealer. But in terms of actually taking the payment from the buyer, is that done through your platform or is it done through the dealer's platform?
So taking the money from the buyer is done by our platform. So we have a payment provider integrated into our platform, one of the most renowned payment providers, at least in Europe, I can say. And the seller, the dealer, becomes the merchant of record. Basically, this is the person who is effectively selling the goods to the customer. And our payment provider also provides multi-seller payment split, basically a payment split, right? So depends on who's in the checkout, right? One seller or multiple sellers. That's why we are launching this new feature now, right? Then the payment will be split, right, between each and every seller. Now, what happens? Who is actually the one shipping the goods to the customer? Let's say it's written on a different page, right? So that's why we say to our clients, look, let's look into your processes, right? Because every B2B business says they have an individual setup, right? Their processes are individual, they are special. So we do take a deep dive look into their processes, how they do it. And there are some that say, we ship the goods worldwide. We just want our dealers to do the deal, right? And effectively, once the deal comes into our ERP system or whatever means they have, we will ship it. So then it's done between them. But the payments go through the seller, because this is also, let's say, a compliance topic, right? Because the escrow of the money, this is held by the payment provider. So they need to know who is the one who has entered a legal, basically contractual relationship with the customer. Is it the brand or is it the seller? And we opted to configure our platform in a way that the seller is the one who goes into a legal, it's a called relationship, probably not, but anyways, who has a contractual relationship with the customer who bought the product. And as I mentioned, this also makes it easier for sellers for dealers using our platform and sell the products of their brand. And this is how we do it.
And so in the cart, let's say with this new model that you're going to introduce in the beginning of 2024, would it show, let's say I've got 5 items in my cart, would it show like the dealer logo next to each line item so that it's very clear who the seller is of those individual items, even though it's Bosch, let's say, for example, across the top of the page, and I'm in a Bosch shopping cart, and I'm going to be making my payment to Bosch, and it's going to turn up on my credit card statement as Bosch, but I'm seeing, okay, cool, well, this is the dealer that's supplying this item, this is the dealer, it might be a belt sander, okay, this dealer is supplying that, okay, this is a compactor, okay, this dealer is supplying this. Is that kind of how you're going to differentiate? It's an Amazon cart where you might have 15 items in your cart, but you can see as you go down the line items who it is that's actually selling each of those items.
Exactly. That's exactly how it is. Basically, the feature of this new product will be called a buy now button, right? So the customer goes on the website of the brand and you will see this sticky button like a chat button, right? A chat icon. Now this will be a shopping cart icon, right? And you can add any product from that website to that cart, right? So in the back end, every time you add that product to the cart, you will need to choose from which dealer you want to buy. So you will see the price, you will see the availability, you will see the time of delivery, also shipping fees and packaging fees, whatever they apply, because in B2B, normally we also sometimes have packaging fees, so everything of that is covered. All of that is covered. So you choose it right there and then. And then you go to the next product. So yes, you have this multi-product shopping cart functionality. And because during the process of adding the product to the cart, you already choose the dealer. So at the end of the day, once you have finished adding all the products to your cart, you will then be able to check out. You will see the total sum, right? You will see, as you mentioned, there are 5 different dealers who will supply this product, and that's fine, right? And then off you go, right? You do one payment, and like magic, it will be split in the background. Every dealer will receive his order confirmation and then an X on that basically order. But there's also one more aspect to it. In the same way as dealers are able to create their own buy now. Now this buy now button can also be placed on the website of dealers. So let's say now dealers do have a website and they sell maybe that very brand. So we will only show an add to cart button of the products that belong to that very brand, however, on the dealer's website, right? And then the customer will only buy from that very dealer, but the product of that specific brand. And that's how we can then leverage basically all digital touch points where the brand wants to display their products.
And what incentive does the dealer have of deploying your buy now button on their own e-commerce website for just this brand that supports this model? What benefit do they get from effectively migrating that shopping experience effectively off their website onto your platform? Particularly if they want to add on that website, they might want to add 3 brands worth of products to their cart at the same time, but you're only servicing one of those brands, and so therefore they do the kind of the buy now for that one product from that one brand, but then the other 3, they go through the normal checkout experience with all the rest of the products in their cart. So it feels that could potentially lead to a little bit of a disjointed buying experience on the dealer website.
Yes, definitely. And that's also not the scenario that we foresee. What we do see is that there are many dealers that either have no website at all, or they have a very basic website, or they have an e-commerce site, right? For the latter one, there is no added value that I see to add a buy now button that we provide, right? And there I would also be honest and say, look, that doesn't make sense, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about the user, or what I like to say, the brand buying journey, right? How is it that if I want to buy a Nike shoe, right, I want to have that experience. However, knowing e-commerce as it is, I know the shoe or the sneakers will most likely be cheaper when I go on the next marketplace, right? And this is exactly the sweet spot where we are in, right? In that scenario, if I was to search for products, or I am on a dealer website and I know this is the dealer of my choice, now he doesn't have maybe an online shop, but if I now see, okay, he does sell that branded product that I like because they are a specialist in that very area, particularly in the B2B field, then I have now the opportunity to buy that product online. So then we will serve both, right? We can leverage any channel like social media. We could leverage also newsletters and so forth with the buy now page. And we can leverage the website where there are no existing, let's say, transaction functionality embedded into.
And I guess that what that does is it allows dealers to tiptoe their way into e-commerce with a very low lift, low effort exercise. So let's say, I don't know, let's say they're running a WordPress informational website. They haven't plugged into WooCommerce. They haven't got transactionality all set up. They don't have a payment gateway set up, blah, blah, blah. But they're selling Bosch in this case, and they sell a whole range of different power tools from different companies, and one of their brands happens to be Bosch. Now, in the blink of an eye kind of thing, they can enable transactionality selectively across their Bosch products simply by loading your platform on their site. And I'm guessing it's like maybe just a snippet of JavaScript or something like that. And then when there's a SKU match on a given page, whatever it might be, and the SKU is detected that's from that brand, then boom, we can enable the shopping experience from anywhere on any website front end that we like.
That's exactly it. So, and what we can see here is maybe in very established markets like maybe North America, Australia, or maybe Western Europe, you would maybe have less dealers who do not have online shop functionality on their website, if they have a website, right? But as soon as we go into markets that are up and coming, right, there we see a totally different picture for that buy now button, right? Where we can then say, yes, maybe you do have a website, as you just mentioned, right? However, you haven't tapped into that e-commerce potential because it's just a different ball game, right? It's not as easy as just building a website, right? You need to have your processes in place. You need to know how to in like your online shop, right? Legal aspects you need to consider, taxes, and so forth. It's a different ball game, let's say. So yes, for the less experienced, let's say digital savvy dealers or even brands, that's a perfect feature. However, if they are more savvy, then the buy now page, basically the product that we have now, is perfect because here they can leverage any media, as I mentioned, even SMS or WhatsApp, they can leverage because they just add a link to their offer, and then there you go, conversational e-commerce, so to say.
And I guess let's talk about the execution of the transaction on the back end of someone completing a transaction. Sure. And the order gets routed to a specific dealer. I'm guessing that for dealers that are not very advanced and they're not very digitally savvy, maybe we just send them an email with all the order details and then they execute it manually how they would normally do every order manually. Or they manually type it into their ERP because that's what they always do to fulfill an order, or manually key it into their WMS or whatever it is. And then I guess for the ones that are more tech savvy, or if they've got their own e-commerce website, etc., then you can connect to the API endpoints. Let's say it's BigCommerce or maybe it's Shopify or whatever it might be. Then you can connect to their API endpoints. You can place the order through those endpoints, and that gets executed through their transactional system just like it normally would. Or for a lot of dealers, they'll only support EDI, for example. And so I'm guessing that you effectively then connect to them via EDI, push the order in via EDI just like any of their customers would, and Bob's your uncle, it goes through the normal order management workflow that it would go through as if the customer placed it directly with them. And so I'm guessing that you can supply that data, or maybe it's a CSV of orders that then gets attached to an email and gets sent to the dealer to fulfill because they ingest CSVs into their ERP to fulfill orders or into their WMS. So I'm guessing that you can supply that order data in whatever level of advancement that the dealer is capable of ingesting that data. Or I'm guessing you could actually just put the CSV up on a SFTP server and they can pull it down once a day or once a week or whatever it is and fulfill it that way. So I'm guessing you've got many ways of getting this data into the dealer's hands.
Yes, you mentioned them all, Jason. Basically, we really have a complete out-of-the-box, let's say, SaaS solution, right? That allows you to start off with nothing, even if you don't even have an ERP, right? You are very low level, or not low level. You just started.
You're very basic. You're running QuickBooks or Xero.
Exactly. So you will get an email, right? That's it. However, if you then want to if you go into the next maturity level, right, and you want a CSV file, you can download it either from our platform straight away, or we will provide it to you. No issue. And as you go up the maturity level, yes, then an SFTP server where we can push the data up, they can download the data, all of that, or via endpoints with the API. This is all possible. So we look at every single scenario. Then we say, okay, how do you want to go about it? Because as I mentioned, you have brands, they have, say, a global footprint because they do sell their products through their dealership, through their sales network, right? What if you only offer an API endpoint, right? Yes, the dealers who are maybe in more matured markets, right? As I mentioned, let's pick, I don't know, France, for instance. Yes, it's easy, right? But as soon as you are in maybe less advanced markets, then we would hit a roadblock, and this is what we don't want to do. So we offer a bunch of opportunities, or let's say possibilities, to get that order into your system, and then we can always advance by time. The way depends on what your wishes are.
Makes complete sense. If we compare the United States market versus the Mexican market, for example, B2B e-commerce is still not that common, even in the States, but it's significantly more common than it is in Mexico, where like probably only 0.5% or something like that of B2B merchants in Mexico even have an e-commerce website at all. But in the States, it's probably around that 30% mark or 20% mark or something like that offer an e-commerce experience of some description, even if it's basic. It makes sense that you would effectively create a pathway to digital maturity that allows those dealers and those representatives of brands to effectively participate in digital transformation at their own pace, whilst also not missing out on the benefits of the brand doing its own work, doing its own marketing, doing its own advertising, driving its own demand in market, you still get the benefit of that, even if you're not that digitally mature yourself, or even if you don't have a website at all. You still are going to be able to transact in that market, because a lot of these dealers, they might have physical store chains, right? But they don't do e-commerce at all. Maybe they've just got a single page website that says, here's where our store locations are, for example. And sure, they may have a point of sale system, but that might be it, right? Yeah. And so I feel like this is a good solution that meets brands and their representatives where they are in their digital journey, regardless of where that might be.
%. And also, we see clients do is entering new markets with our platform. Now, if we now look at a brand that wants to establish a footprint in a new market, right? Let's say the Middle East, because this is something that I just talked about with my one client, right? So they want to leverage their brand. They have invested decades and plenty of money and hours of work into and brain power into building a brand, right? And they're renowned for something in their field. And now they want to distinguish themselves from the competitors, local competitors, but also international competitors. It doesn't matter if they are in a niche or in a red ocean market, right? So how can they leverage their brand in a new market? How can they tap their toes into a new market? How can they provide their dealers product content, like content or product information in the right language, and enable also an e-commerce functionality, but without losing out through which channel their customers are buying the brand from, right? So from the beginning, you will get the full picture, right? There is no spot that you don't know about in the new market, because you can give your dealer a tool that probably is even better. Anything is better than not selling digital, so to say, right? So you will get ahead of your competition by leveraging such a platform like ours into a new market, because your competitors maybe still need to train their dealerships about their products, right? And this is basically what we see. And the beauty, again, is there's no need to translate anything. And translation is a massive for companies going into new markets, right? It's not only finding the right dealer who understands their vertical, right? It's also how to enable them to sell your products, right? Not only online, but also offline. And we feel this is really where we have an edge, and also our clients really get that. It's not about us having the edge, but it's more enabling our clients to have the edge in their given market. And this is what I actually love about our product, right? Because it does serve such a critical pain point that I'm happy about.
And let's talk finally about the CX, because to me, this is perhaps the most important part. We've talked about all the brand functionality, all the dealer functionality, and all the ways it helps them and benefits their businesses. But the way that I see it benefiting the end buyer of the product, whether that's a business, whether that's an end consumer, whatever it might be, the end buyer, the way that they benefit through this environment is the fact that currently, without your technology, let's say I go to a brand's website, and let's say they even have a dealer locator on their website. Well, what I do today is I will go down through that dealer locator list. I'll refine it down to like maybe my state or my city or whatever it might be. Then I will open in another tab. Let's say they've got 5 dealers in my local region. I'm going to open every single one of those in 5 tabs. I'm going to search for the product that I'm looking for in all 5 tabs. I'm going to have to jump between them to see who has the best offering. And then if I want to buy more than one thing, I'm going to have to do this multiple times. And I'm going to have to compare what deals they're offering, what programs they might be offering around that, what support offerings, shipping, all that stuff. I'm going to have to compare that across 5 different shopping tabs before I can even make a decision which dealer I engage with. And I might engage with 2 or 3 dealers in 3 different tabs, depending on what they're offering at that given point in time around those products that I want to buy. And that is an end consumer experience that is super filled with friction. Like, it's ugly. You might have Home Depot opened in one tab, you might have Lowe's open in another tab, and then you might have 3 tiny local dealers that are niche dealers in your area also open in 3 different tabs. So the amount of time that it will take you to do that process, it might take you 30 minutes to do a process that through your platform might take 2 minutes. So that's a significant removal of friction for the end buyer as well. Doesn't just benefit the brand, doesn't just benefit the dealers, it actually benefits the user experience too.
And from a user's point of view, you listed all the pain points, right? And a brand might not even realize it at first. They might think that, okay, if I have a shop locator, I'm actually adding value to my customer. But in fact, you might be confusing your customer up to the point where he says, okay, man, I'm fed up. Or it's not like that the dealer only sells your product. I've been in that space for many years, and so have you, and you know that a dealer will take any opportunity to sell to that customer. So even if it means to show maybe what other people bought or viewed, even if it's from a competitor, as long as that person is buying, I got a sale, right? And that's what also dealers are good about or good at, right? They want to sell the product, right? They want to offer the customer the best product possible. But also sometimes they just want to offer the customer any product as long as the customer buys. That friction, we want to remove that friction, as you mentioned, right? We want to provide a seamless brand buying experience. And this starts with not sending your customer away anymore, right? The customer comes to your website. He or she, the customer wants to engage with your content, view a video. So now you need to offer the customer the possibility to purchase your product. But don't do it by sending the person away to a different UX, different, let's say, behavior of the website, right? Maybe there will be another pop-up showing up, I don't know, whatever, right? Taking the attention away when the customer just wants to buy your product. Please.
And not only that, I think you make a very good point, which is that when I get redirected to the dealer's website in the current model, I'm not getting directed directly to that product page. I still have to find the product. So let's say I'm on the brand page and I find exactly the product I want. I've watched a video. I'm hot and I'm excited. I'm ready to put my credit card in, and I'm ready to buy this Bosch belt sander because it looks like the bee's knees. I'm excited. I'm ready to buy it right now in the moment. Now I've got to go and find a dealer. Plus, then I have to search the website, whether it be through navigation or site search. I have to find the product. That also assumes that dealer carries that SKU, has it in stock, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it all of a sudden takes me from a buying high point to a buying low point in terms of my customer journey and frustration. It actually introduces a tremendous amount of frustration over and above the friction. It creates buying frustration because once people have made a decision to buy, they want to execute that transaction as fast as freaking possible with no additional effort required on their part. So I think that this kind of kills multiple birds with one stone in terms of the customer journey.
I would say so, definitely. And yes, we have seen different, let's say, user journeys, right? You mentioned a user journey where the customer then has to go to a new website, has to accept the cookies or reject them, and need to search the product again and can finally add it to the cart, and hopefully the product is in stock. And you mentioned it all, right? But also what I mentioned earlier, like Commerce Connector that I have worked with in my role at Bosch in the past, they can connect one-to-one, right? So you would be on that product detail page of that dealer. However, sometimes that product is just not in stock. And then you need to open another tab. You need to go back to the Bosch website, find another dealer, and hopefully that dealer has that product in stock. But guess what? It's more expensive. That frustration
is real.
Yes, you said it. And yes, so the customer experience is a big topic here. It's a big topic that we tackle in a much different way, because at the end of the day, this is where companies also invest so much into their website, right? Even if you have, let's take the example, Jason, of a configurator, right? You configure your product, even if it's a mountain bike or a power tool or a boiler because you want a hot water boiler, whatever it is, right? There's a configurator. And now at the end of the journey, you now have been recommended, in essence, the right product, but what now? Leave your customer standing there in the rain, right? Come on, help him, help your customers. For God's sake, I was just about to say, please help your customers. But no, jokes aside, I think these are critical points where brands need to realize what they do to the customer here, right? Look, what's the next step? What would you want if you were to go through that configurator, right? Step-by-step approach. And what would be the best experience that you can offer? And I'm not saying, look, come to Next Commerce. I'm saying just from an objective point of view, right? What would be the next best possible action for your customer to take at that point when you have recommended that person the best product you have in stock or in your portfolio, right? And just thinking about that question will inevitably get you to a point where you say, either I need to be able to convert the customer myself, offer him a purchase option, or ask my dealer to convert him, but not necessarily through, yet again, a different UX, from my perspective.
Couldn't agree more. That CPQ functionality in B2B is a real thing, and it's a big thing. And if you expect your buyers to go through a full CPQ process, you don't want to just dump them to a product landing page that has 56 variants on it, and they have to go through the process again. It doesn't make any sense. So your platform sounds like it kills many birds with one stone. Now, if we're looking out into the future of your platform, you said in early 2024, you'll be releasing this multi-vendor functionality in cart, basically. What else is on your radar that your customers are asking for, or that you say, yep, we don't do this today, but we know we need to? And so what is high priority, maybe the top 2 or 3 things on your priority list other than that multi-vendor aggregated cart, composite cart functionality? What's next for your Next Commerce?
What I would love to really deep dive into is leveraging AI in a way that we can offer our clients to build landing pages that are so enticing, so engaging with that buy now button functionality, right? So with that customer saying, okay, this is what I want to do now. So this can come from a newsletter, right from the newsletter. Yes, you can send them to a static page, but we want to personalize the user journey more. And this is where AI can play a big role, where we can, and it's not about only e-commerce or selling to the customer, but it's also about engaging the customer in that brand environment, right? And that is basically what we are looking at. And I'm really excited about that because it helps building and providing a better user experience. And this is what I believe is mainly about, or should be mainly about, the customer experience at heart. And so this is definitely something we will be looking at. And that's about it. Yes, this is already a big chunk for us.
I call it practical AI, and I think that there's many cases of practical AI and software that haven't even been touched yet. And I think natural language speaking interaction with software is got to be coming, because the reality is, why should I have to navigate a UI when I should be able to have a conversation with the software and it just does what I tell it to do and it knows exactly how to execute on that? So I think there's lots of very realistic practical uses for AI, particularly in commerce software, that just we haven't even scratched the surface of it yet. So that's very exciting to hear. And if people want to get a hold of you, if they want to learn more, are they best to reach out to you on LinkedIn? I'll also link to your website, of course, which is next-commerce.io. I'll also link to that. If people want to come, if they want to have a conversation with you about the platform, or just have a general yarn about B2B e-commerce, how do you like people to reach out to you?
They can reach out to me directly, definitely Ivo at next-io, LinkedIn, obviously. And they can just come also on our website, and we have the different possibilities to reach out to us. But yes, feel free to hit me on my email directly. That's absolutely pleasure on my side.
Look, Ivo, this has been an absolute pleasure. We're now coming to the end of our time together, and I do so appreciate your time with me today. But now I get to turn the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question, any question you like, can be personal or professional. So Ivo from Next Commerce, what is your question for me today?
Jason, I've become quickly a big fan of your podcast, have been listening to by now hours and hours of your podcast. And also, I have listened to your podcast, I think, about with one of your guests talking about Mexico, about the potential there. And I was like, okay, now Jason is in Mexico. He recently moved there, right? And the market is, let's say, not as advanced maybe as the United States B2B e-commerce landscape. And you talked about all the potential, and I was like, oh wow, okay. Now, Jason, why? And I need to add another point to it. And you speak to so many people in that industry, right? You have everything at your disposal to build maybe the best ever e-commerce platform with all the knowledge that you have. Is that something that you would or that you do consider? I'm really curious about that. I would love to hear your view on that, your thoughts about that.
Look, yes, absolutely. The opportunity has certainly crossed my mind from a platform and from a software perspective. And in fact, for a period of about 7 months, I was working in hand with the guys over at Ecommerce to help build their go-to-market strategy and help them roadmap their technology, help them find product market fit. And I guess what I've realized is that, and I knew this because of my agency background, but building software is really hard. It's really hard. It is hard to build excellent software. It's very expensive to build excellent software, regardless of no code, low code. It's still hard, it's still expensive, and it's still time consuming. And the reality is that there are probably now tens of thousands of pieces of amazing software in the market that never see any traction. So amazing platforms that have been built, but either the founders just don't have a social presence, they don't have maybe they've put most of their money into building their software, so they don't have money to formulate a really solid go-to-market plan. They don't have enough money to do the organic marketing they need to do, the performance marketing they need to do to have some level of field sales, maybe in terms of outreach or partnerships. And so there's a lot of things that have to come together for a piece of software to be successful other than just the software. And it's a hard slog, it's a hard grind, and there's no guarantee of success. In fact, I would say that the vast majority of software dies on the vine and goes away. We never even know that it happened. And so for me, because I'm a non-developer, I'm very technical, but I'm not a developer. And so therefore I can't just beaver away after hours for 3-4 hours a night, banging away on this piece of software, developing something that I think maybe the market wants or needs with no market validation. It is a very difficult journey, and you have to really love it. I think you have to, as passionate as I am about e-commerce, I'm equally passionate about people. And oftentimes the people that get into developing software, they like building software just for the building aspect of it. That makes them feel alive. That's their creation. They're pouring their heart and soul into something that they then put out into the world. And to a degree, they don't necessarily always care exactly how it does, because that's just part of their creation process. That's part of their art, right? My art and my gift, I think, is speaking, it's writing, it's having conversations like this with no prep. It's being able to create emotional connections with other people really quickly that then make us both feel like we had a really good time and that we had a really positive connection. And I bring that into my consulting too. When I go into a deep dive discovery with a large B2B brand and we're going to have 2 days of discovery together, I have to be able to build rapport in that first 10, 15, 20 minutes, because they're going to be opening their soul to me over the coming 2 days. And if I can't build a rapport with them, they will never be open and transparent enough for me to get enough information out of them to be able to craft my consultancy to them, to be just spot on for them and tailor it for them. So that's a long-winded way of saying that is not where my passion lies, and it's not where my gifts lie, I don't think. Certainly helping ISVs to craft their go-to-market model and what that needs to look like and craft their partnership programs, that's all natural to me because I'm dealing with the founders, right? I don't have to necessarily be passionate about writing software to be able to help them be passionate about their go-to-market model, which is a communication model more than anything else. So I realized that was a long-winded answer, but that's the answer. It's basically my passion is people, my passion is communication, my passion is writing and speaking and video and content production. And consulting. It's not building software.
It's, I think, beautifully said, because passion is what drives us, right? We need to be able to believe in something, in what we can do, where we can add, what I like to say, value add. And you said it right there, right? If that's your passion. And for me now, that totally makes sense. And the next class I hear from you, your passion really comes across, right? And I will have that in mind, because this is what you love to be. Because I kept asking myself, man, this guy he knows it all in B2B e-commerce. Has so much loads of experience and has an good answer, really fantastic answers to all the topics that you talk about with your guest. But I understand now where you're coming from, because that's your passion. And yes, I wish you best of luck with that passion, right? It's beautiful. Nice one.
Thank you very much. And it also, I guess I'm also super grateful, like you, that working in the digital space, it almost doesn't matter what you're doing in the digital space. We can do this job, this business, this industry, we can do it remotely from anywhere. And I feel incredibly grateful that when I first started this career 23 years ago now, that I fell into, because my story is very interesting, and I basically fell into e-commerce. It was not pre-planned in some grand way. It was more than that. It was basically a happy accident is how I got into it. But I think I was always destined to be in it, because the moment that I got into the industry, it was like, wow, this is something that I can do for the rest of my life. And I feel super lucky that I've been able to do it this long and make a living from it for this long. And I haven't had to change careers or change direction. I've had to evolve my skills, but I've been able to stay in this industry for as long as I have. And that's a rare thing. For most people will have to change their career several times throughout their life and change directions. And I just feel super lucky that this industry turned out the way that it did, and it's up and to the right still. And so there's demand for our skill sets in our industry still, and it's still growing at a great rate of knots. And when we look at the e-commerce penetration of digital rates for both B2C and B2B independently, there's so much more room to grow. And this industry is going to grow until long, long after I'm gone. And so that feels super lucky, and I feel super blessed in that regard as well.
Nice one. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Ivo, this has been a fantastic conversation. Super appreciate it. Can't wait to speak to you again soon, my friend. Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.